My father called me the family burden my whole life. My mother at the reunion changed everything. I was 7 the first time my father called me the family burden. Not in a whisper, not behind closed doors, at the dinner table, while passing the salt. My brother laughed. My mother stayed quiet. And I learned something that night. In our house, silence meant agreement. It became a pattern. Every mistake I made wasn't just a mistake. It was proof. Proof that I was too much, too slow, too emotional, too inconvenient. If I cried, I was dramatic. If I spoke up, I was disrespectful. If I succeeded, it was luck. Or worse, someone else's effort. Don't get used to it, my father would say whenever I brought home good grades. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. I stopped celebrating things after that. By the time I turned 16, I had mastered invisibility. I stayed out of the way, kept my opinions locked inside, and made sure I never needed anything. Because needing things, that made me a burden too. The funny thing is, I wasn't a bad kid. I didn't sneak out, I didn't party, I didn't rebel. I just existed. And apparently, that was already too much. But my mother, she was different. Softer, quieter, like someone who had once been loud, but forgot how. She never defended me, but sometimes she'd leave small signs. An extra piece of chicken on my plate, a blanket folded at the edge of my bed, a quick touch on my shoulder when no one was looking. It wasn't much, but it was something. Still, it never stopped him. Why can't you be more like your brother? You drain this family. You'll never survive on your own. That last one stuck, because I believed him. So when I finally left for college, I didn't feel excited. I felt terrified, like I had somehow tricked the world into giving me a chance I didn't deserve. And for a while, I struggled. I worked 2 jobs, ate instant noodles for weeks, failed a class, cried in bathroom stalls where no one could hear me. But I didn't quit, because deep down, a small, stubborn part of me wanted to prove him wrong. Not to him, to myself. Years passed. I built a life. Not a perfect one, but mine. A small apartment, a stable job, a few friends who didn't look at me like I was a problem to solve. And slowly, the word burden started to feel less true. Until the invitation came. Family reunion. 25 years of marriage for my parents. Big celebration. Extended relatives flying in. A perfect family moment, according to the message. I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't been home in 3 years. Not since the last argument, when my father told me flat out, "You coming back here only reminds us of everything we'd rather forget." So why invite me now? That question sat heavy in my chest. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. And against my better judgment, I went.
The house looked the same. Same chipped paint, same creaky front steps, same feeling in my stomach as I walked up to the door. Like I was about to step back into a version of myself I had fought hard to leave behind. The door opened before I knocked. My mother stood there. And for a second, I didn't recognize her. Not because she had changed, but because she looked like she was about to say something she had been holding in for years. "Come in," she said softly. Inside, the house was full. Laughter, chatter, clinking glasses. My father stood at the center of it all, telling stories, commanding attention like always. He saw me. Paused. Then smiled. but it didn't reach his eyes. "Look who decided to show up," he said loudly. A few heads turned. I felt that old heat creep up my neck. "Hope you're not here to cause trouble." Some people chuckled. Same script, different year. I forced a smile. Wouldn't dream of it. But something felt off. Not just him. Not just the room.
My mother kept watching me, not nervously, intently, like she was waiting for a moment. And when dinner started, she didn't sit beside my father. She sat beside me. That had never happened before. Halfway through the meal, my father stood up, glass in hand. "All right, everyone," he said, "time for a little speech." Of course it was. He cleared his throat, smiling like the perfect man everyone thought he was. 25 years of marriage, a strong family, a successful life. He paused, then looked directly at me. And despite certain challenges along the way, we made it. Laughter again. But this time, something shifted, because my mother slowly stood up too. And she didn't look at him. She looked at me and said, "No, that's not how this story goes." The room went quiet. My father's smile cracked, and for the first time in my life, I saw him unsure. "Tell me, what time is it for you right now, and where are you watching from? I'm curious to know."
"No," my mother repeated, her voice steady. "That's not how this story goes." You could hear a fork drop. My father let out a small laugh, the kind he used when things didn't go his way. "Sit down," he said quietly, through clenched teeth. "Don't make a scene." But she didn't move. And that's when I realized something I had never seen before. My mother wasn't scared. "I've been sitting down for 25 years, she said. "I think it's time I stand." A few relatives shifted uncomfortably. My aunt looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. My brother? He just stared at his plate, like none of this concerned him. Typical. My father set his glass down a little too hard. "This isn't the time." She smiled slightly. Not warm, not soft. Sharp. "No," she said. "This is exactly the time." And then she did something no one expected. She turned to me. "Do you remember," she said, "the night you came home crying because your teacher said you were one of the best students in class?" I blinked, caught off guard. Yeah? "You were so happy," she continued. "You ran in here holding that paper like it was gold." I felt my chest tighten. I knew where this was going. "And what happened?" she asked gently. I hesitated. "You don't have to," my father started. "She does," my mother cut in. All eyes were on me now. That old feeling crept back, the one that said, "Stay quiet, don't make it worse." But something in her expression held me steady. "You told me," I said slowly, looking at him, "that I shouldn't get used to it, that even a broken clock is right twice a day." A murmur spread across the table. My father scoffed. "Oh, come on, that was a joke." "No," my mother said firmly. "It wasn't." She turned back to everyone else. "That's how it always was," she said. "Every achievement, dismissed. Every mistake, magnified." "That's called parenting," my father snapped. "No," she replied calmly. "That's called tearing someone down until they believe they deserve it." Silence again. Heavy. Thick. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. Why was she doing this? Why now? "She worked harder than anyone in this house," my mother continued. her voice rising just slightly. "While you," she glanced at my brother, "were handed praise for doing the bare minimum." "Hey," he started. "Sit," she said. And he actually did. I almost laughed. Now he listens? My father crossed his arms. "You're rewriting history." "No," she said. "I'm finally telling it." She reached into her purse and pulled out a stack of papers. Old, slightly crumpled, edges worn. My stomach dropped. "I kept everything," she said quietly. My father's face changed. Not anger this time. Panic. "Put those away," he said, stepping forward. But she took a step back. "Report cards," she said, holding one up. "Certificates, letters from teachers, even college acceptance emails." She looked around the room. "You all thought she was the problem," she said. "The burden." Her eyes landed on me again. She wasn't. I felt something crack inside my chest. Something I didn't even know I was still holding together. My father laughed again, but it sounded forced now. "This is ridiculous. You're embarrassing yourself." "No," she said. "You did that all on your own." A few people actually nodded. That's when I noticed it. The shift. The room wasn't on his side anymore, and he felt it too. "Enough," he said sharply. "This conversation is over." But my mother shook her head. "No," she said again. "Not yet." She lowered the papers slowly. "There's one more thing." My breath caught. Something about the way she said it. This wasn't just about the past. This was bigger. My father's voice dropped. "Don't." A warning. A plea. I had never heard that tone from him before. But my mother didn't even hesitate. She looked straight at me and said, "The reason he called you a burden wasn't because of you." The room froze. I felt my hands go cold. "What do you mean?" I whispered. She swallowed, and for the first time, her voice softened again. "Because," she said, "you were never supposed to be the one carrying everything." I frowned. That's when I noticed it. The shift. The room wasn't on his side anymore, and he felt it too. "Enough," he said sharply. "This conversation is over." But my mother shook her head. "No," she said again. "Not yet." She lowered the papers slowly. "There's one more thing." My breath caught. Something about the way she said it. This wasn't just about the past. This was bigger. My father's voice dropped. "Don't." A warning. A plea. I had never heard that tone from him before. But my mother didn't even hesitate. She looked straight at me and said, "The reason he called you a burden wasn't because of you." The room froze. I felt my hands go cold. "What do you mean?" I whispered. She swallowed, and for the first time, her voice softened again. "Because," she said, "you were never supposed to be the one carrying everything." I frowned. "I don't understand." "You will," she said. My father took a step forward. "If you say another word..." But she raised her hand and finished the sentence anyway. Because the truth is, this family's biggest secret was never you. My heart stopped. "Then what is it?" I asked. She looked at my father one last time, then back at me, and said, "It's him. It's him." The words didn't just hang in the air, they landed.
heavy, final. My eyes snapped to my father. For the first time in my life, he didn't look in control. He looked cornered. "That's enough," he said, voice low, dangerous. "You've said more than you should." "No," my mother replied, calm as ever. "I've said less than I should for years." I felt like the room was shrinking. "What is she talking about?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "What secret?" My father didn't answer. He just stared at my mother like he was trying to stop her without moving. But it was too late. She stepped closer to me.
"You've spent your whole life thinking you were the problem," she said gently. "That you were too much, too difficult, too heavy." I swallowed hard. "Yeah," I whispered. "That's what I was told." Her eyes softened. "And he needed you to believe that." A chill ran down my spine. "Why?" I asked. Silence. Then, "Because you made him feel small." I blinked. "What?" My father scoffed loudly. "Oh, this is unbelievable." But no one laughed this time. No one backed him up. My mother didn't even look at him. "You were never like him," she continued. "You questioned things. You saw through things, even as a child." Memories flashed, moments I had buried, asking why my brother never got punished, pointing out when my father contradicted himself, refusing to accept "because I said so" as an answer. "He couldn't control you the way he controlled everyone else," she said. "So he did the only thing he knew how to do." "Break me," I said quietly. She nodded. Yes. My chest tightened, but not in the same way as before. This wasn't shame. This was clarity. My father stepped forward, his voice rising. "You're twisting everything. I disciplined her because she needed it." "No," my mother said sharply, finally turning to him. "You disciplined her because you were threatened by her." That hit harder than anything else. Threatened? By me? I let out a small, disbelieving laugh. "You thought I was a threat?" My father's jaw clenched. "Don't flatter yourself." But his voice cracked. Just a little. "Enough. You spent years calling me a burden," I said, standing up slowly, "making me feel like I didn't belong in my own family." I took a step closer. "And all this time, it was because you couldn't handle me?" He didn't answer. Didn't deny it either. And that silence, it said everything. Something inside me finally let go. All those years of self-doubt, all those nights wondering what was wrong with me, gone. Not because someone fixed me, but because I finally saw the truth. There was never anything to fix. "You know what's funny?" I said, a small smile forming. "You were right about one thing." He frowned. "I did survive on my own." A few people chuckled softly. Not at me, at him. And for the first time ever, he was the one being judged. My mother reached for my hand. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I should have said something sooner." I looked at her. All those years of silence, all those moments she didn't step in. And yet, she was standing now. "I wish you had," I admitted, "but you're here now." She squeezed my hand. And that was enough. I turned back to the room, to the people who had watched, laughed, stayed quiet. "I'm not a burden," I said, clear and steady. I never was. No one argued, because they couldn't.
I picked up my bag. Not in anger, not in defeat, but in peace. And as I walked toward the door, my father called out one last time. Walking away doesn't change anything.
I paused, then looked back. It changes everything. And I left. Not as the girl who was too much, but as the woman who finally understood she was always more than enough.
If this story made you feel something, hit like and subscribe because there are more stories like this coming your way.